You know, the past few days have been a real emotional roller coaster. From the DNC blatantly rigging the Iowa caucus, to using a shoddy app that they themselves funded, to stringing out the results all the way to the New Hampshire primary or more just because they can't handle the idea of a Bernie victory. This system is completely broken, and we should all stop fooling ourselves that the people behind it actually care about us for 1 second. I wrote something earlier that dives into what I believe is the root of the problem and the core of the disease, and I'm going to read that message. You know things are in a bad state when rightfully pointing out that a law-breaking administration is, breaking the law, or even booing and expressing your disapproval of those who so obviously do not care about the will of the people marks you as public enemy number one in the eyes of the state. It's amazing but unsurprising that Nancy Pelosi and Rashida Tlaib are already being attacked for their individual acts of protest, which they have the right to do, and saying, among other things, this is why we can't have unity. Apparently, Pelosi tearing Trump's speech as a symbolic gesture to communicate what she and the majority of this country think of his words is divisive. A gesture that communicates the people's growing disdain for this administration becoming a beacon of hatred, division, racism, white, Christian, and American supremacy, sexism, bigotry, violence, and the GOP clearly not caring who gets hurt so long as they get what they want in the end. Some conservatives unironically believe that acknowledging the actions of the ruling class is divisive, but what the ruling class itself is doing is not. No surprise though. Divisive in their eyes is not Trump and the GOP relentlessly breaking the law to maintain electoral and political power, not the constant cheating, lying, threatening, manipulating, and blackmailing to ensure no one dares speak out about the crimes they've committed. Not the willingness to allow foreign entities to interfere in our elections. Hello, Ukraine. Not their virulent bigotry and active attempts to strip LGBTQ people like myself and immigrants of all rights and support systems. Pelosi tearing a piece of paper is the problem. We're just going to ignore Trump's known history as a sexual predator. We're going to pretend that Mitch McConnell actually gives two shits about anyone but himself and his cronies in the House and the Senate. And we're going to act like the GOP actually cares about ensuring every single citizen in this country deserves the same opportunities, rights, and privileges. We're going to ignore the fact that they've shown time and time again that they care more about money and power than preventing gun violence, investing in the kind of healthcare that every other developed country in the world has, investing in our infrastructure, environmental protections, proper education that doesn't involve mythology. I mean religion. Wage slavery is the name of the game, and if you want to survive, well, you'd better be willing to pay whatever price they demand. Can't pay the ransom? Well, suffer the consequences. We're going to act like corporations and the wealthy, who, mind you, regularly donate to Republicans and corporatist Democrats, aren't responsible for people dying because insulin was too expensive, for crushing debt that can't be paid off in one lifetime, for increasingly expensive housing that is pushing millions away from areas with good job prospects, which directly leads to worsening poverty and homelessness, for stripping job protections away from vulnerable minorities and endangering their well-being, and for making work, disillusionment, disconnection, and cynicism the only existence some of us are ever going to know. If you fool those below you into believing that this is normal and that you have it better than any other country in the world, they'll remain woefully ignorant to the reality of what's actually happening. The ruling class will broadcast whatever propaganda necessary, no matter how easily debunkable, to keep the people herded up like sheep and scared of anything that'll pop the bubble they've been herded into. They call socialism and communism bad and evil and responsible for the deaths of millions, but in the process revealing that they don't have the first understanding of history or even what those things are. Just proclaim the name of Jesus and raise your middle finger to Muslims, atheists, and anyone whose beliefs don't line up with yours, and say that your law and your people matter most, and that if anyone dares to criticize them or you, well, it means they're criticizing America. And how dare we criticize a country responsible for slavery, killing millions across the world in illegal wars, coups, airstrikes, the ousting of democratically elected leaders, all in a never-ending mission to grab whatever land, power, resources necessary so that way we remain the one ruling empire of the world. And not to mention allying with terroristic regimes like Saudi Arabia, who was responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Equate America with the Messiah so that it becomes something godlike, infallible, and justified in every action it commits. Establish the president as the mouthpiece and cult leader, and claim that only his words are true. Humiliate and belittle every single voice that questions his authority so that his followers begin to do the same. Encourage them to repeat the leader's talking points, which are the talking points of the ruling class, and discourage any kind of critical thinking or open-mindedness. Repeat the same things over and over again until the followers finally see these things as truth, which oddly enough sounds like religion, does it not? Then position the opposition as the enemy, as something that is a real and present danger to America, the ruling class, and something that is an affront to American values, the values of the ruling class. Ensure your followers don't realize that you're cloaking your wants for society under the guise of freedom and liberty and the American dream, so that when doing what they believe is right, they're actually doing your bidding. Use dog whistles that tap into their fear of anything outside their bubble, so they label anything that goes against the leader's words as fake news. And keep the ruse going. Feed them sensationalized, willfully misinterpreted, or flat-out false interpretations of reality, so they remain distracted while you are behind the curtains to strip them of their rights, just as you did to marginalized communities before. So division between them and the enemy, people who are just like them but have seen the light. So they'll fight amongst themselves instead of fighting you. Don't alert them to the systems of oppression and hierarchies that you're implementing that will forever keep them at an arm's length from you and your power. That is why we struggle so greatly to have any semblance of unity in this country. Even the mere act of pointing our finger across the aisle and blaming the other side for that which we're guilty is in and of itself a divisive action. We're being toyed with and lied to by the establishment, and they think we're too stupid to see through it. The division that should be addressed in the here and now is not left versus right. It is the people versus the establishments. Because let's not kid ourselves. In our modern government, the left and right may as well be one and the same. They've bent the knee to their corporate masters and will happily sit back and watch as said masters wreak havoc abroad and at home if it means a fatter paycheck. They've sold their souls to the devil, worshipped the almighty dollar, and abandoned the duties they were elected to do. Our power is superseded by theirs, and they're willing to do everything in their power to keep us down. But you can only keep the people down for so long. The only thing that will end the encroachments and very existence of late stage capitalism, a fascist theocratic government, and the strengthening of a kleptocracy is to tear every bit of it down. Remove them from power democratically, and if democratic means fail, well, viva la revolution. Abolish every system of power they put in place and burn down every hierarchical structure that pits us against one another and stratifies society to where some automatically have more or less than others. No gods and no masters. No more of this black and white two-party system that gives the illusion of a functional representative democracy. When have we ever had that? No more rigging the system and lying to our faces when we say every vote counts. Only we should be reigning supreme and having the sole discretion over how we live our lives. Without the state in the way, division would be a thing in the past. No more harmful ideologies, no more posturing, no more propaganda. Only that which serves all of us. True equality for every single citizen, regardless of who they are, should be woven into the very fabric of our society and never again threatens. Democracy is dead. Long live the revolution.